Pretty much every brand understands how story guides their sales, guides their marketing. In fact, for most of us, when we hear story, the first thing we do is associate it with the marketing that we see from any given brand and the story that they're trying to tell the world. For your brand story to reach its true potential, it must be infused into everything you do as an organization. A great brand story isn't just about clever marketing copy, it's about weaving it into the fabric of your customer experience, your company culture, and your growth strategy and where you grow as an organization from where you are today. When you're thinking about how to make your story come alive in everything you do as an organization, you want to go back to the same place that we started, thinking about the hero of that story, your customer. Putting the customer at the center of everything, even something like your company culture, certainly even your growth strategy, is really the key to leveraging the story to its full potential. For your brand story to reach its potential, you have to think about how it guides every aspect of your organization. Every time a customer interfaces with you, you have an opportunity to either tell your story or communicate something that may actually be at odds with it. When someone picks up the phone and calls your company for customer support, what type of experience do they have? When they land on your website and they read the copy that describes who you are, what kind of promise does that make? Most importantly, when they're talking to somebody in sales and they're getting ready to actually begin a customer relationship, is what they're hearing consistent with what brought them there in the first place and what's going to happen long after they sign the contract? The brand story is a framework. It ties together and it binds all those different touch points that you have with your customers. It's critical that you think of your brand story in this way precisely because customers will perceive those gaps if you don't see them yourself. When a customer hears a promise in a marketing message, it needs to be carried through in the way that the product works for them. When there's a difference between the promise the customer hears on the front end of the relationship or how it's delivered as part of the product, that may seem to you like a small moment of friction in the customer relationship. But for them, it's a betrayal and a disconnect of the story that you're communicating and the trust that they're placing in your brand. Start to think about the story that we laid out earlier, the arc, and how it carries through your organization. Every touch point that you have with a customer should be empathetic to the broken world that they've either experienced before they began working with you or that treacherously lays below them should your customer relationship end. Think about the promise you've made for how you're going to mentor and guide them, the things they're experiencing as that powerless outsider at the center of the story, and the promise that you've made about how that product in their hands is going to be able to transform their life. Then, every time that you interface with a customer, think about how to reinforce the right element of that in the conversation. If you're having a customer service interaction with a client, how can you reinforce to them the ways that your mentorship is guiding them forward? If the customer is using the product on their own, how can the language or guidelines and usage of that product reinforce its potential as your brand's magical gift? And perhaps most importantly, when you're asking them for referrals or for evangelism or for advocacy, how can you get them to speak not about the product that they used, not even about their own experiences, but about that incredible mended world that's happened as a result of your relationship together? Holistic brand storytelling requires laying out and outlining all the interactions that people have with your brand and ensuring that each and every one communicates the same consistent story so that in every interaction, you're moving towards helping your customers become evangelists for the brand. Effective holistic brand storytelling is not about taking every interaction that you have with your customers and retelling the same story over and over and over again. The power of holistic brand storytelling is that you have a roadmap for how those interactions can look and how they should tie together. You might take one part of your customer journey, a demand message or a top of the funnel advertisement, and highlight just the broken world of the story. But since you've given the thought and care to lay out what the rest of that journey is going to look like, you know that later on you can back up that promise with more positive, more affirming messaging as part of the customer experience. You look at your employees and the ways that they deliver on the mentorship that you provide in your story. Those guidelines and those frameworks are going to help you develop a culture that's not only customer-centric, but reinforces exactly what the customer expects from the first time that they interface with your brand. The 5-part narrative arc that we've communicated earlier in this course not only lines up perfectly with the hero's journey that works so well for any kind of storytelling, but it also aligns flawlessly with the journey that your customers experience when they start to interface with your brand. Aligning each part of your journey with that 5-step arc seamlessly moves prospects to becoming customers and customers to becoming evangelists for your brand. The broken world is the ideal messaging state for top-of-the-funnel messaging. It highlights to potential customers, prospects, why they need your brand, the pains that they may or may not even be experiencing and seeing today. It exposes to them how much better their state could be if only they had a different path, a different way forward, a way to solve the problem that you've highlighted for them. This type of emotional messaging draws people into sales conversations. It makes people interested in brands. It inspires them to learn more. And it's the way you want to position all of your top of the funnel or initial marketing that you communicate to your audiences. When you start to think about becoming a customer-focused brand, it's that next state of sort of consideration for people that really helps them understand why you can empathize and understand their pain points. The broken world draws people into a conversation, but it's your highlighting of the customer and your unique appreciation for who they are that starts to foster the relationship and the trust that you're going to need to make them a customer. The second phase of every customer relationship should be focused on you highlighting what it is you understand, what it is you value, and what it is that you appreciate about the needs that the customer has, and ensuring that they understand how aligned those are with their own concerns and their own value set. As your customer reaches the point of making a final decision in terms of whether or not they want to work with you, that's where you start to highlight the value of your mentorship and the relationship that you have with them. Making that decision isn't just about how the product works and whether the customer thinks it might be able to address some of the problems that they're experiencing. It really ties into whether they believe that you've got the ability to unlock the potential that they have within themselves. Behind every relationship, behind every buying decision, is the belief that that could unlock the opportunity for us to be more than who we are today. That's true of whether you're an individual or whether you're the largest, most complex enterprise B2B brand. Talking about your role and how you can become a mentor to empower and guide that audience helps cement the trust that started to form after you built empathy in the earlier stages of your sales conversation. It's that connection that allows you to move through the final elements of the consideration set and begin a relationship with a new customer. Although it's tempting to put all that great information about how your product works or the outcomes that your services deliver right at the top of a conversation with a prospect, save that for right when they're about to become a customer. You want that moment where someone is making the final decision about whether they want to work with you or not to be the point where you reveal to them the power and potential of the magical gift that you've crafted just for them. Your product or service at that moment, once the customer believes that you understand their pain point, understand their needs, and that you've got a path to solving it, becomes more than just another piece of technology or another monthly subscription fee. What it becomes in their hands is a magical talisman that they can use with your guidance. It's at that point that you want them evaluating the features and benefits of what you do. Not because those things aren't important earlier on, but because when they see them through the lens through which you've created, it becomes not about how those features and benefits stack up to what your competitors say. It becomes a way that you can achieve the promise and potential that your customer has already bought into and already become excited about. All of us have heard the expression that trust takes a lifetime to build, but only a moment to break. Think about the last time that you had a relationship with a brand that you had formerly trusted that became disrupted. I will almost guarantee you that at the core of that was an interaction you had with the brand that betrayed the promise they had made to you when that relationship began. When you're thinking about how to holistically implement your brand story, what matters more than anything is consistency. On any given day, your team are having countless interactions with each other and with your customers. Your customers are speaking to other customers and perhaps even your prospects. Each and every one of those interactions must reinforce the moral of your story in the same consistent arc that you've developed, all designed to communicate what matters most about you and why people should care.